the primary system does not work to support kind of, if you will, centrist candidates or moderate candidates. It works to support those candidates that manage to get the most passion out of people. So that even though Trump was winning early on, he was winning with minority votes. He was winning, let's say, 20 to 15 or 30 to 25 or whatever,
because
right?
There were so many other candidates.
So many other candidates. So you didn't have to win a majority. And I think even at the end, a majority of Republicans would have said, he's not my favorite candidate. I hear that all the time. People say, I voted for Trump, but I never really liked him. On the other hand, his approval rating among Republicans right now is close to 90%.
Is it really?
Yes, it's something like 87% of Republicans like Donald Trump. So at this point, he has become their candidate, even though it's actually very rare to meet somebody who says, yes, I'm a huge Donald Trump fan. They usually say, well, he's better than Hillary. Okay, but there were other candidates you could have chosen from, and you chose him. So I think the same thing's going to happen on the Democratic side. I mean, we'll see. The Democratic field is actually bigger now than the Republican field was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And that was a big field. That was like 17 candidates. We're well over 20. I think we're over 30 now.
Oh, my
on the
gosh.
Democratic side, yeah. And so lots of candidates, lots of big personalities. And it's going to be really interesting how the Democrats sort it out. And are they going to sort it out in a way that, because somebody like Bernie Sanders has a certain percentage of people who are going to vote for him no matter what. Is that enough to kind of wipe out all the other candidates? And it might be.
You think so?
I don't know if it's going to be Bernie, but I think there's a good chance you get a Bernie-like candidate on the left who is somebody who's not palatable to most Americans because they're too far on the left. And then they're stuck with this choice of we don't like Trump and we don't like, let's say it's Bernie, well, what do we do? And I'm not sure what they do. I'm not sure how the election goes if that's the case. So I think if you got somebody who is a true centrist right now, I'm not sure who that would be, then they could take on Trump and maybe even beat Trump. But I think the more left they drift, the less likely it is that they can actually beat Trump.
What do you think about Joe Biden?
Not much. I think the guy's not particularly smart, not particularly stands for anything, not particularly anything. He's just a nothing.
But do you think that could help him?
He's never won anything, right? He's run for president 3 times. He couldn't win any of them.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah, he can't win. He's not a winner. He doesn't have a personality. He's pretty old now. Now so is Bernie, but Bernie has charisma. Biden has no charisma. He's like, he appeals supposedly to the intellect, but I don't think he's that smart or has any really interesting ideas. So I don't see where Biden can really be successful or really go anywhere. I think there's a lot of splash when he comes out, but I don't think he does well in the primaries. So I think somebody like Beto O'Rourke from Texas, who is probably going to position himself more as a centrist, I think we'll see. He has the option of doing whatever he wants because he has no experience. He's young and he's not on record saying a lot of stuff other than in the Texas election against Ted Cruz. But he did very well in that election, right? In Texas, he got a big vote. So I mean, Beto is gonna walk all over somebody like Biden. I mean, he often says just stupid things. I mean, he just mouths off and says dumb things. And he's just not impressive. And it's kind of, it shows how desperate Democrats are that they would put out somebody like Biden as their big hope. And I think it's that center within the Democratic Party, the people who are afraid of Alexandria, who are saying or afraid of Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, and they're looking out of desperation for a candidate they can get behind. And Joe Biden's all they can get. I mean, that shows how pathetic the Democratic Party is right now. In terms of the talent and that they have, they just don't have it. So it's going to be really interesting to watch the Democratic primaries, and it's going to be interesting to see if anybody is willing to challenge Trump on the Republican side, other than Kasich, who I think might do it but doesn't have a chance.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about Howard Schultz?
Look, I don't think I don't have a positive opinion about anybody in politics. Anybody. Like there's two,
Well, that's
there
why
might
I
be
asked,
two
because
people.
he's a businessman first.
So obviously he's a great businessman. He's had enormous success. Starbucks is a phenomenon. I mean, it's the success of Starbucks. There are very few franchises that have succeeded as well as Starbucks has. It's changed our culture in many ways. The way we view coffee, the way we deal with coffee has changed because of Starbucks. So obviously the guy's a brilliant businessman, and I have a huge amount of respect for him and admiration for him as a businessman. That doesn't make you a good politician. It doesn't mean you have good ideas. It doesn't mean you know anything about economics. It just means you know how to run a business, which is great. I admire people for knowing how to run a business. But that doesn't, for me, translate immediately into he's a good politician. I mean, a lot of people said, oh, you got to vote for Donald Trump because he was a real estate developer and he was a businessman. No, I mean, I know a lot of businessmen are socialists. I mean, I know businessmen who have really, really crappy ideas. So now Howard Schultz is, I guess, less offensive than a lot of other people. He's kind of trying to position himself as a centrist. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I don't think he has the charisma that a politician needs. I don't think he has a base. Who exactly is going to vote for him? I mean, Starbucks consumers? No, probably not. So who's he appealing to? And again, I mean, the energy today on the left is not in the center. The energy today on the left is with AOC. And he ridicules AOC and he ridicules the Green New Deal. And I mean, justifiably, right? But so who's going to get excited about his campaign? Who's going to volunteer? And as a third party candidate, I mean, there's never been very successful third party candidates. Ross Perot in modern history is the closest we've come. And Perot, I mean, he didn't have charisma. I mean, you guys are too young to remember Ross
I remember.
Perot.
It's so funny. I actually remember the elections,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what was going on. I just remember the name Ross.
I mean,
Perot.
he did this amazing thing, which actually worked great for him. He presented himself as a geek, right? And he did these TV ads where he would basically sit in front of a camera and for half an hour and show people graphs of how terrible life was, right? And it wasn't a fancy PowerPoint. It was literally graphs. Here's my graph. Look at what's happening. And he would talk about the debts, and he would say, he would scare people, and he would say, the debt is going to destroy America. This is really bad, and I can save it. And he had these wacky ideas on how he could save it. I mean, they were a little crazy. But there was a certain percentage of the population that was looking for somebody who was not left or right, clearly defined, and was willing to be honest with them, actually sit down and talk to them. And it was amazing how that geekiness and that honesty appealed to people. I don't think that would work today. And I think people's fears and anxieties are not around economic issues like they were. This was 1992, and it was coming out of a recession. It was during a recession, really, and coming out of the 80s, which were very volatile economically, very volatile times, much more than what appears to be now. Now things have been, we haven't had a recession since 2008. And yes, things haven't been great, but they haven't been bad. And unemployment's been steadily going down. Economic growth has been steadily flat to going up. I mean, things are kind of stable. So this idea of huge volatility and huge changes is kind of ridiculous given what's actually going on in the world. So there's a guy on the Democratic side, I think Andrew Yang. So he's kind of a bit of a geek, right? And he's out there talking about UBI, universal basic income, and he's talking about all kinds of, wonky ideas about how to deal with stuff. And he has no chance, right? He has no chance of getting any votes. And he's also wrong on everything that he says, so that's a bad combination when you're wrong and you don't have a chance of getting any votes, because that's not what people want. People want radical left. People want, at least the people who are going to energize a campaign, want a Green New Deal and to bankrupt the country, or they want to build walls and to protect us from the other that is going to, they want big trade barriers and they want big walls so to protect us from the danger that the other poses to us. And that's where I think that's where the dialogue is happening. That's where the energy is, unfortunately.
So,
and these geeky ideas are not going to go anywhere. They're bad geeky ideas, but at least they're worthy of discussion.
Right. I have said that about Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard is I think how you pronounce her name.
I don't know.
She's another candidate I think from Hawaii.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
I've said about those two candidates, even though I know very little about their policy, I at least respect the fact that they seem to be making the rounds on these long form shows.
Yep.
And they're willing to sit down and hash out their ideas for a couple hours, because that's not something that a lot of other candidates are willing or able to do.
No, I don't see a lot of candidates going on Joe Rogan and submitting themselves to 2 hours of that. But, Joe treated, from what I saw, I haven't seen the whole thing, I just saw bits of it. He treated Andrew Yang very respectfully because Yang is kind of an entrepreneur and he speaks the language. He's young, he's energetic, and he's got these ideas that are in Silicon Valley where the cool people live. Are considered cool ideas, like UBI, Universal Basic Income, is a Silicon Valley thing. So I can see the fit with somebody like Joe Rogan, but whether that fit then, matches up with voters out there, I just don't see it.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching the episode. If you're interested in contributing to the conversation and supporting the show, there's 2 easy things you can do. 1, click subscribe, and 2, visit our Patreon page where you get exclusive access to the Exploring Minds community.